Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Daily Dose, number 7 with Hazim and Ayman. We are on Juz' number 7, chapter number 6, Surah Al-An'am. In verse 59, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says,
وعنده مفاتيح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في البر والبحر وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين.
And with him are the keys of the unseen. None knows them except him, and he knows what is on the land and in the seas. Not a leaf falls but he knows of it, and no grain is there within the darkness of the earth, and no moist or dry thing that is written in a clear record. This verse, subhanAllah, reminds us of a further verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about 5 specific things that are only known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are unseen to us, they are unseen by the jinn, they are unseen by the angels. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of them.
The first one that's only seen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows about it, is when the day of judgment will begin. SubhanAllah, there's a very famous hadith where the archangel Gabriel actually came to the Prophet ﷺ in the form of a human in front of all the Sahaba, and he started asking them about Islam, about Iman, about Ihsan. The Prophet ﷺ answered the questions, and he taught the Sahaba as well, teaching us as well. But later on, the angel Jibreel, he asked the Prophet ﷺ, when is as-sa'a, when is the hour, meaning the day of judgment? And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that the questioner knows just as much as the one who is being questioned. So it means that both of us do not know. This is one of the unseen things that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows.
The second thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows the exact weather. SubhanAllah, with all the advanced equipment that we have today, with the meteorologists when they forecast the weather, SubhanAllah, they could say that there's a chance of rain, and they expect rain, and SubhanAllah, it's a sunny day, and the opposite is true. And SubhanAllah, just look at the tornado, and how SubhanAllah, that at any moment a tornado can hit, and it can be on a certain path, and within a split second, it can just turn on the nick of a dime in the opposite direction, which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of.
The third one is that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the nature and gender of the infant that is inside the womb of his or her mother. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows that. Even today with our most advanced medical technology, you can't even tell early on, not even on the night of conception, what baby you will have, what the gender of that baby will be, subhanAllah.
The fourth thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of, and that is what you will earn tomorrow. SubhanAllah, we stress, we focus so much on, what job are we going to have, are we going to make enough money, but SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows what we will earn tomorrow. And nowadays, SubhanAllah, there are people that they go to, they have cards read, or their palms are read, or they go to fortune tellers, wanting to know, what am I going to have, what am I going to make in this life? SubhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written our rizq before we're even born. So there's no need in worrying what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows it, and inshallah, no matter what we do, we'll get what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained for us.
The fifth and final one is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that knows where each and every soul will die, where it will pass away, which land it will be, so on and so forth. There's a very nice story that goes along with this. Sayyidina Sulaiman, the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, was sitting in his court when some person came in. This person came in and started discussing some issues with Prophet Sulaiman, and as he was discussing these issues with him, he was giving one of the men of the court a very, very deep stare. And he would continue talking, then he would look back at him, and he would stare at him, and stare at him, and stare at him. And when he left, this man from the court of Sulaiman looked at the Prophet and said, Ya Sulaiman, who is this guy? I mean, he's just giving me this deep stare. It seems as if he's looking right into my soul. So Sulaiman says that this is the angel of death. He was just disguised as a human being. And then he says, take me out of here, please, let me go somewhere else. I can't be here. He freaked me out, basically. So Sulaiman says, what do you want me to do? He says, please, order your wind to take me all the way to India, as far away as possible. Sulaiman orders his wind and clouds, a power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, He orders them to take him all the way to India. He goes to India, and then the next time the angel of death comes into the court of Sulaiman, he asks the Prophet, Sulaiman asks him, what happened to that guy? Why were you staring at him so deeply that day? He said, you know what, when I came in, I just wanted to discuss an issue with you, and I saw that man there. And I knew that the next step, or the next item on my agenda, was to take this man's soul immediately after I met with you, all the way in India. So subhanAllah, I was very, very, confused when I saw this man sitting there in your court. And I was like, I'm about to leave in a few seconds, and I'm going to go all the way to India to take this man's soul. How is he ever going to get there? So I was very, very confused. But subhanAllah, the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always true. He went to India, found him there, and took his life.
SubhanAllah. So we've talked about the 5 unseen things that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of. And if you think about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of the unseen as well as what we can see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we conceal within our lips before we even say it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we know, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we don't know, then how is it that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us not to do something, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us, that we can't stop ourselves from committing a sin? SubhanAllah, look at the month of Ramadan, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that food and drink is made halal for us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained it for us, that it is ordained that it is haram for us during this month. That during these specific hours that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it haram for us. And that it's very easy when you are at home, that you're by yourself, you're secluded, and you go to the fridge and you just break your fast. But you don't, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. That you stop yourself from committing something, from doing something that is halal for you 11 months out of the year, but this 1 month you stop it. So why is it so hard that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us not to do something that He has ordained that is haram, that we can't do it? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching over us, and that we shall do our best to stay away from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to stay away from. To help you get through Ramadan each and every day, check the Mass Arizona page to get your daily dose.